Get some! Jake Huger, Atticus Berry with you guys. All right, listen, I'm afraid we're about to have an excellent show, and I need you to be afraid.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to have our finest hour. Maybe not our finest.
I don't know about all that.
I don't
Let's
imagine.
bring down the temperature.
Imagine the next hours when we peak. Like it goes down.
And then from then on, it's just downhill.
That would be bad. That would be bad. I would not want that.
But you're gonna want to stay around for the next hour and find out, isn't it?
Yep.
I would. I would.
All right. Well, let's talk about a story that I noticed is getting more and more traction when it really shouldn't, because it's a ridiculous idea. It's not going to happen. So let's do it.
I want to make it clear. I'm going to raise some taxes. Many of you are billionaires out there. You're going to stop paying at 3%. Not a joke.
No, it is a joke, because no, he's not. Let's just keep it real. Now, what President Joe Biden was referring to there is his upcoming budget proposal, which is probably the most irrelevant effort from Biden during his administration. Why? Because he was unable to pass tax increases for the rich when Democrats had the majority in the House and the Senate. What makes him think there's even a little chance, a tiny minor chance, that he's gonna get tax cuts passed? So this is more, in my opinion, of the posturing and the theater to make it appear as though he supports certain things, when in reality, when he had the opportunity to pass it and he had the opportunity to fight for it, he didn't do so. So please spare me this made up drama that's now ensuing among the Democrats, because Democrats in some of these purple states are like, oh no, I'm facing a tough re-election. I really don't want Biden to do this. Please don't do this, Biden, please. Come on.
Okay, that's exactly how they said it. I saw it. I do want to do a minor correction though. You said tiny minor. No, it's tiny miney. Okay?
Tiny miney.
Tiny
okay,
miney.
Sorry, apologies. Okay. I want to make sure we get the facts right.
Okay, now I'm going to tell you why Biden's doing this. I'm going to tell you why the Democrats are crying. I'm going to tell you why they did this story in the mainstream press. I'll hit you with one of them now and then the others later. Why is Biden doing it? Do you know what raising taxes on the rich polls at? Now, if you're in Washington media, you're gonna guess 10%, 9, 8, which one? Like a bunch of communist young kids probably. It polls at 76% among the American people.
Yeah, that's right.
Over 3/4 of Americans say, goddamn right, tax the rich. That's why Biden is doing a fake attempt to tax the rich. He doesn't want to tax the rich. He already knows, Anna's absolutely right. It has no chance of passing. It had no chance of passing when he had the majorities in both houses.
Yeah, guys, look, let me give you just one of the reasons why I believe he's not being sincere in wanting to raise taxes on the rich. One of the things that he did right out of the gate when Democrats had the majority in the House and the Senate was he proposed a corporate tax hike from the 21%, which Trump, of course, had lowered from 35%, right? So Biden campaigned on, I'm gonna reverse the Trump era tax cuts for the rich. So you would assume reversal means going back to 35%. But his proposal right out of the gate was not 35%, it was 28%, with no details on whether or not he was interested in cutting the corporate tax loopholes. Like, let's keep it real. He was never sincere about reversing the tax cuts for the rich. There's his first proposal made that clear.
Okay, I'm gonna give a tiny bit more context to that because I love that story. He's like, I'm reversing and we're gonna be back to 35%. No, 28%. Then Manchin said, no, 25%. And you know what they settled at? No, 21%.
Yeah, exactly.
They didn't move it 1 inch. And they never intended to. And what the press is doing here is total theater. We'll get back to that in a second.
Yes, so let's go to the Hill. Not literally, the publication is what I'm referring to, where one of their headlines reads, Biden to trigger tax fight Senate Democrats don't want. I'm gonna read you a few excerpts. Biden will trigger a fight over raising taxes when he introduces his budget plan next week, something the Senate Democrats, who face a tough road ahead to protect their majority, aren't clamoring for, especially in West Virginia, Montana, and Arizona. Manchin waved aside a question about raising taxes in a deficit reduction package. When asked about adding tax hikes to a deficit reduction deal, he said, quote, "We ought to be worried about the $31 trillion in debt and how we got here so quick." Well, the $2 trillion in tax cuts for the rich that passed in 2017 under Trump certainly contributed to that. But he's got no interest in reversing those tax breaks because homeboy's wealthy himself. Let's keep it real.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're talking about all the debt we have, then obviously you'd want to increase taxes on the rich so that we could lower the debt. Where's the question? But of course, the question is, how much am I getting bribed by those same wealthy folks that mainstream press is never going to talk about? But here's an interesting thing they also don't mention in the article, which gives you the most important context for this. They say a tough road ahead for some Democrats in swing states and red states like West Virginia, making it seem like the people of West Virginia want tax cuts for the rich.
Right, which
ridiculous. They most definitely do not. Even though West Virginia is red, it's also one of the most populous states. And they hate the rich more than almost any other state. And so if you polled, look, I haven't seen a poll in West Virginia specific about raising taxes on the rich, but my guess is it would be higher than the national average of 76%, right? But the press makes it appear, Manchin and Tester in Montana, he can't do it because the red states love the rich so much and they don't want them touched at all.
Yeah.
That's totally nonsense. The real reason why it's a tough road ahead for them is because in those swing states, they need tons and tons of cash to compete. And where are they gonna get the cash? Well, they're gonna get it in the form of legalized bribes.
Yes.
From the wealthy and from these corporations.
Yes.
And that's why their reelection would be made tougher because they can't take as many bribes if they vote for this. But they never clarify that in the press.
Of course they don't. Of course they don't. Because as Cenk mentioned earlier, when you poll the American people in regard to raising taxes specifically on the wealthy, it polls incredibly well. In fact, during the Trump administration, as he was trying to market and sell his tax cuts to the American people, the majority of Americans, poll after poll, there were multiple polls indicating that his tax plan was not popular. But they went through with it anyway because it's self-dealing, right? Not only for their donors, but you gotta also keep in mind that there are so many wealthy people in Congress. And at that time, with Trump in office, I'm sure he and his family members benefited from those tax cuts as well. But to your point, Cenk, one other excerpt I wanna read from The Hill, putting tax increases front and center when Democrats have to defend 23 Senate seats in the next election is causing jitters because Republicans are sure to latch on to Biden's proposal to try to paint the Democratic Party as at large as a bunch of tax and spend liberals. Look, if you're not bought, if you're a Democrat who is not bought by corporate donors, go ahead, Republicans, please market what you're marketing. Please go to the American people and let them know that I want to raise taxes on the rich. Or actually, no, please don't do that. That would be very, very bad, right?
Yeah.
No, if you're uncorrupted, that's free advertising. That's free campaigning on your behalf. Excellent, go do it, have fun.
You know, this article was actually kind of a masterpiece in corporate propaganda because it helped everyone involved, both through acts of omission and commission. So they never told you, hey, those battleground states will be made tough for the Democrats because they can't do as much fundraising if they do this. I mean, don't you think that's the most relevant fact in the story? But you left that out entirely. But it's not just the acts of omission. How about the ones that they are doing? So they say, okay, tax and spend liberals, that's how they'll be tarred. But wait, why would they be tarred if 3/4 of the country is in favor of it? You're making it seem like raising taxes on the rich is unpopular by the way that you're framing it, although you never stated a poll. So you didn't technically lie, right? But you framed it in a way that makes no sense at all. In fact, it's the opposite of what's true. And then the third thing that's in there is a giant thank you to Joe Biden, who's an enormous corporate Democrat. So the correct way to write this article is President Biden suggests a tax increase on the rich because of how popular it is in the country, full well knowing that it has no chance of passing because of the bribes that his Democratic colleagues and the entire Republican Party take.
Exactly.
That is actually what is happening, but you get none of that sense from this story.
But it's okay because we can decode the nonsense and propaganda here at TYT.
Boom, you're welcome.
All right, well, let's take a little trip to Florida where apparently the state lawmakers are done with all the important relevant work, so they have all this time left over to troll people. Florida State Senator Blaise Ingoglia has decided to propose banning the Democratic Party through a waste of time piece of legislation that's really just meant to troll his opponents. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, he has proposed something referred to as the Ultimate Cancel Act, trying to draw attention to cancel culture, which he alleges is just indicative of the left. And none of that is going on with the right wing, as they're literally banning books in school libraries in the state of Florida as we speak. But nonetheless, let me give you the details about his proposal here. The Ultimate Cancel Act, filed Tuesday by the state senator, would require the state's Division of Elections to immediately cancel the filings of any political party whose platform had previously advocated for or been in support of slavery or involuntary servitude. Now, as you guys can clearly see, that proposal doesn't note Democrats specifically, but he's referring to Democrats because of the history of the Democratic Party, which we'll get to in just a second, but a little more on the bill. The bill, called SB 1248, would require Florida officials to notify all registered voters who belong to any canceled parties that their parties no longer exist. It would also change their voter registrations to no party affiliation and provide procedures for those voters to update their affiliations to an active political party. So, look, Republicans have a supermajority in Florida. It's clear that he's trolling here, at least that's what I think. That's what others have said about this proposal. Who knows if they're actually gonna go through with it, but the reason why they're referring to Democrats here is because of the fact that the Democratic Party back in the day, especially the Southern Democrats, were not in favor of ending slavery, okay? So, but then there was the whole realignment. We've talked about this a billion times on the show. The Democratic Party of today is very different from the Democratic Party back then. And this is just a way to make a point about like, well, the left goes around canceling everyone. Why don't we cancel their entire party?
Okay, so first of all, obvious theatrics, right? So is this a pressing issue for the citizens of Florida? Is this going to affect your life? Hey, you know what? If they pass this bill, then I'm gonna feel good about owning the libs. Yes, yes. I'm not gonna have any more money or healthcare, or the environment's not gonna be better, or my community's not gonna be any more protected, but we're gonna own the libs. Well, you know, it's all entertainment now, bread and circus. So maybe the Republican voters will love it, right? But it certainly doesn't help your life other than psychologically, where you need a lot of help. But the essence of the story is about the great deception that the right wing does, which I think the media lets them get away with.
They do, yes.
Yeah, so this is the beginning of chapter 3 in my book, Justice is Coming. It's called the Southern Strategy. This is what the Republicans did. Nixon decided, hey, the Democrats used to be the party that was in favor of slavery. That's true. Remember, the Republicans say, oh, we're the party of Lincoln. I mean, Lincoln was a Republican, technically true, right? So are they actually the party of Lincoln? No, they switched sides. And after Lyndon Johnson passed the Civil Rights Act and Voting Rights Act, Nixon, this is a well-documented fact, 2 heads of the Republican National Committee have admitted this and apologized. Said, yes, when we saw the Democrats pass Civil Rights Act, we decided to become the racist party and go and try to get those voters in the South that would then abandon the Dixiecrats, who they were supporting because the Democrats were the more racist party. So now let's go get those racist voters. That's just a flat out fact. It's actually one of the most elementary facts about American politics that there is. Every single reporter knows the Southern Strategy, and they know that the Republican leaders have apologized for it, even though they still do it. And yet they never share with you that, no, wait a minute. When you say you're the party of Lincoln or the Democrats who are in favor of slavery, you are leaving out the most critical fact in American political history.
Intentionally.
Intentionally.
Right, and of course, I mean, I don't want to say of course, I'm gonna go ahead and speculate though that part of the reason why they're doing away with certain curriculum in states like Florida, history curriculum, is because they don't want students to know about the reality of what happened with the Southern strategy and all of that. But anyway, putting that aside for a second, I mean, it's an interesting trolling attempt for a guy who belongs to a party where I can recall a few people coming out and trying to sanitize the institution of slavery with all sorts of nonsense about how, well, some slaves were actually treated really well by their slave masters. You know, they were fed. Yeah, they were beaten and everything they did was by force. But you know, some of the slave masters, they weren't so bad. I mean, I can't, how many times have we done stories like that?
And you know how many times it's been Democrats that said that? Zero. And by the way, like 100 years ago, it would have been probably almost exclusively Democrats. There was certainly plenty of racist Republicans back then too, but mostly Democrats. But in the last 40, 50 years, that's the Republican Party. They chose that path on purpose. And guys, we're honest in our reporting here. So as the Republicans are absurd for saying they're the party of Lincoln, the Democrats are also absurd for saying that they're the party of FDR. FDR was a progressive that's further left than Bernie Sanders. And right now, he would be attacked by everyone in Democratic leadership as a radical, progressive, left-winger, anarchist Antifa, okay? So both parties have done their switches. The Republicans on the issue of race, the Democrats on the issue of economics.
Can we also talk about the notion of involuntary servitude? Because again, his proposal says that we need to ban any party that has advocated for or been in support of slavery or involuntary servitude. I remember when states like Florida decided to open businesses back up prematurely in the very beginning of the coronavirus pandemic. And essentially said that teachers or any employees who were uncomfortable going back to work because the virus was still killing a ton of people, still had to go back to work. Too bad, because if you don't go back to work, what happens? You lose your job, you lose your livelihood, you might end up on the streets. I feel like that might fall under the category of involuntary servitude to some extent.
Look, if we get into Republican hypocrisy, we'll never get out of this story.
It's just such a, and look, at the end of the day, he's getting exactly what he wants, right? He wanted attention. Congratulations, you got your attention.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, trolling the left might make some of the Republican voters in that state feel good, but what does it do to improve your life?
All right, one super last thing on the media. These kind of theatrics wouldn't work and they would backfire if we had honest journalists who would then say in every article about this, oh, by the way, you should all know that the party switched because of the Southern strategy on the issue of race, and the Republican Party is now the one that is by far the more racist. And then, well, you wouldn't want to mention that you were the party of Lincoln. You wouldn't want to do these kind of games if you knew the reporters were going to be honest about who the Republican Party is today. And by the way, part of the, as I explained in my book, part of the reason I get so mad at the media is because they didn't tell me. And that's why I was a Republican when I was younger. If I knew they hated all the others, including my family, I wouldn't have been a Republican. Can you please be honest with the American people?
When we come back, we've got more news for you, including super fun congressional hockey game between lawmakers and lobbyists. What's wrong with that, right? So cool, we should celebrate, and the Hill did. So we've got that and more coming up.
So programming notes, watch list is right before the Young Turks. Now you know that 5 o'clock Eastern, make sure you're checking it out. Check out all of our programming, starts with Damage Report in the morning, goes all the way through the Young Turks. You guys love it. Just leave it on if you want. Walter Masterson is now part of Rebel headquarters. Walter's a really interesting comic. He's gone to rallies dressed up as MAGA, QAnon, and found out some super interesting things. So make sure you're checking him out at Rebel headquarters. And of course, make sure you're checking out our podcasting network, wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, now let me go to members. Art Guy says, as soon as Joe knows that they have zero chance of passing any bills, he brings on the fierce fighting language. Absolutely. When they were actually negotiating over bills, there was no fighting language. Oh, my friend, Joe Manchin, who's cleaning between his toenails the other day, and I love him so much. And Joe, how you doing? By the way, that last part is literal. After Manchin killed most of his agenda, he saw him in the crowd and was like, hey, Joe. Fierce. Joe Biden, get out of here, man. Do real reporting. Weird Al Dragonovich says, of course this is your finest hour. Every show is better than the previous because you're always adding to the awesome. Yeah. Well, look, I'm not saying it, the people are saying it. Okay, anyway, you're wonderful. Thank you, we appreciate it. Mickey C. the Silver Dragon says, Biden's just giving his base something to brag about. Even knowing it'll never pass, they can spew that Biden tried to tax the rich and it's the Republicans' fault that it didn't pass. They will say that 4,000 times between now and whatever primary happens for Joe Biden. Everybody in the establishment Democrat, and I'm not just talking about media or Democratic political figures. I'm talking about people who watch MSNBC and CNN. They will be out in force going, he proposed it, what else do you want him to do? You're pretending he didn't propose it, he proposed it. And he said something mean while he did it. Okay, come on, learn politics, please. Please learn a little something, right? And the funny thing about the mainstream guys is they know almost nothing and they always think that they know better. And they're like, oh, did you know that Joe Biden can't do things just on his own, that there's a Congress? Yeah, we knew that. Please try to catch up, okay? You know that not every politician has to be useless? Right back at you. Okay, Louis Cypher says, with the Academy Award coming up, we should have awards for the best political actors. We can call them the Pelosi's. Ooh, ouch. Okay, but I love the idea of best political actor category. We might do that on TYT. Louis, such a good idea. $100 Blue Apron gift card. Email at rewards@tyt.com. Progressive Alaskan says, Anna nails it. Jen gives it to us straight. Biden equals just words, no substance to those words. Unfortunately, that's true, including the parts about us nailing it. Okay, here we go. YouTube members. Robo Doubtfire says, Jenk's shoulders look great today. Cenk, I'm not saying it. Stop working out. The people on the street are saying it. Well, they're not really on the street, but anyway.
Is that blazer padded?
These? Yeah. No, they're just natural shoulders.
Why do they pad the blazers?
I'm not a big fan either.
Yeah.
I don't need it. Vulgar Thumb says the Salt Queen's hair has been on point all week.
Thank you.
That one people are actually saying. We'll be back.
Hey, Jojo.
All right, back on TYT. Cenk, Anna, Danielle, and Bavchuro with you guys. They just signed up. It's Danielle Garofalo. So you guys are awesome. Thank you for doing that. Now you're part of the Young Turks. You see us doing something good, you get the credit. You see us doing something wrong, that's on us. Okay, hit the join button below the video on YouTube. All right, Casper.
Well, congressional lawmakers had a fun hockey game with lobbyists, and we should celebrate. At least that's the sense I got from reading about it in The Hill, which just blows my mind because there's no mention of how problematic it is that the corruption is so baked into our system that you got these congressional lawmakers having hockey games with lobbyists all out in the open and everyone's like, yeah, this is great. Now, the cover story is that they're doing it for charity. What's the cause? Raise money for women in hockey, which I don't want to get the hockey people mad, so I'm just going to move on. Now the headline, really, that like
apparently we're not moving.
No, we're not moving. Really, we need congressional lawmakers to play ass slap football with lobbyists for women's hockey. Really?
Okay, guys. So first of all, in this case, I suppose it would be ass slap hockey rather than football.
But you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, of course.
By the way, I Googled that phrase. That's not a phrase. You say it all the time.
Yeah, I made it up.
Oh. I like it.
Okay, so but guys, the reason why what Anna's saying is relevant and not just a random dig at women's hockey is because like this is the top cause. This is why you guys had to get together. No, you guys wanted to get together so that the lobbyists can influence the lawmakers and that the lawmakers can take tons of bribes from them.
Yes, that's exactly right. So nothing against women's hockey. That's the cover story, and they were too lazy to find a better cover story. That's my point.
Yeah.
So they raised $150,000 doing this, okay? Now let's give you the headline from The Hill. Lawmakers trounce lobbyists in annual charity hockey game. And you know what? That's about the only time lawmakers trounce lobbyists, because most of the time lobbyists own our politicians. And the corporate donors that they represent own our politicians. So in the piece, Emily Brooks writes, after the House of Representatives gavelled out for the week on Wednesday, House Majority Whip Tom Emmer, a Republican from Minnesota, traded voting sheets for a sheet of ice and laced up for the Congressional Hockey Challenge. Whoa. Emmer and the rest of the team lawmakers beat team lobbyists 8-3 after taking an early lead, marking the 5th consecutive win for the lawmakers in the 13th annual charity game.
That's my favorite part. Okay, so one of the lobbyists is a former goalie for a professional hockey team. It's so obvious they're throwing the game. It's hilarious, okay? 8-3, one of the legislator dudes like 98. He's like,
No.
Okay.
House Majority Whip Tom Emmer, I've seen his moves. He's smooth.
Really?
No, of course not. Are you kidding me?
Wait. I'm like, is this like a Kevin Costner kind of situation?
No, definitely not. How dare you?
This guy's Emmer Fudd, he's got a mansion and a yacht. Anyways, it reminded me of Putin. Do you remember the propaganda video we showed of Putin playing hockey against the Russian national team? And he scored 5 goals.
Of course he did. Of course he did. Yeah, totally. I mean,
Grandpa's like going around the rink like this, and the national hockey players, like the best players in the world, are like, oh no, he got past me. Oh, he scored another goal. Come on.
So
Come
crazy.
on. And so the lobbyists are like, oh, oops.
Yeah.
They got past the professional hockey goalie again.
So let's talk about which lobbyists were there. By the way, I should note, for the congressional lawmakers who couldn't make it to the game, they sent their staff, right? And the staff, those are the ones who take up the meetings with the lobbyists for the most part as well. So the corruption continues. But nonetheless, I wanted to give you some names that attended the hockey game. Trevor Hanger, who's the senior vice president of a company known as Forbes Tate, was there. Now he made headlines a few years ago as an emergency backup goalie for the Washington Capitals. So I think that's who you're referring to, Jake.
And they scored 8 goals on them against a professional. 8 goals. Okay, anyway, go ahead.
So I did a little research on Forbes Tate because obviously I didn't know what that was. And here's what their statement is on their website about what their company does. Our team has a history of working with government officials, C-suite executives, I bet you do, from Fortune 100 companies and leaders to some of America's most dynamic organizations, often fostering new development of new and sometimes non-traditional partnerships. Okay, my favorite part is the second half of this. Our knowledge of the complex anatomy of government decision-making processes opens doors to our clients across the nation's capital and around the country. We have developed and continue to maintain productive working relationships with local, state, national, and international policymakers that allow us to provide successful integrated solutions for our clients. I mean, the corporate speak for something as simple as we help companies bribe politicians is amazing.
It is.
It really is amazing.
It could be said in one sentence and that was it, what Anna just said.
Yeah.
Look, this is when a lot of the people in Washington be like, these progressives, they're so mean.
Yes.
And they don't even want us to just have fun every once in a while.
No, I don't.
Remember comedy, like COMITY, like getting along with people, cordial. God, they're such barbarians. We prefer civility in Congress. No, guys. I have the same standard for this as I do with the White House Correspondents' Dinner. If it was the exception rather than the rule, then I'm perfectly happy with it. Oh my God, play hockey, smash into each other. Lawmakers be like, this is the one time I'm gonna take it out on a lobbyist coming in here bothering me all the time. Boom! And no, you can't get what you want in the bill, right? No, instead they ass slap hockey. They're like, oh, hey lobbyist, oh hey lawmaker, I got the money coming for you later. We'll make out tomorrow, right?
1000%.
So this is the rule, not the exception. That's why it's kind of disgusting.
Other people who were there in terms of the lobbyists, Nick Lewis, who's a senior vice president at UPS's Legislative Affairs Office, so he's just the lobbyist for UPS. And also Michelle McGregor, who's a senior strategist at Orrick. If you're wondering what Orrick is, it's a law firm for venture-backed companies.
But I bet they won't give any money to the politicians.
So yeah, I mean, look, that you're right, Cenk. The reason why this stands out so much to us is because this is not the exception. This is the rule. This is the majority of what elected lawmakers do: fundraising, meeting with lobbyists, getting bribed legally, of course, because our Supreme Court has baked it into our political system. And what also caught our attention was, as always, David Sirota's incredible reporting. He's been calling out how the corruption is not only baked into our politics, but it's also baked into the way media reports the news. So he provided an incredible example of how Politico has been featuring sponsored content from Norfolk Southern.
Yeah.
And it's just, it is incredible stuff. So let's go to graphic 8. I'm sorry, let's go to graphic 7. To try to shut down this new regulatory push, the railroad industry's top Washington lobbying group is running ads that look like native content touting rail companies' alleged commitment to safety in Politico's Huddle newsletter, a so-called play-by-play guide to all things Capitol Hill, all while the industry urges policymakers to hold off on issuing new regulations. Now, of course, this is super relevant right now, considering Norfolk Southern's train derailed in East Palestine, Ohio. It's been a big controversy. It's drawn a lot of attention to the lack of regulation, safety protocols when it comes to the rail industry. And here is what the sponsored ad looked like. You see the Politico logo on there, and then you also see a statement from the Association of American Railroads, which of course Norfolk Southern is part of. When it comes to safety, 99.9% is not enough. While 99.9% of all hazmat shipments that move by rail reach their destination safely, we know a single incident can have significant impacts.
Yeah, so this is amazing in a couple of ways. Number one, what native content means is content disguised to make it look like it's real articles, right? So a lot of people, the overwhelming majority of people that see that will not see this thing that says presented by, right? They'll see the giant Politico, it makes it look like it's a Politico article. Then they read the quote, and the quote sounds like, oh my God, the railroad industry is so great. They're safe 99.9% of the time. What else do people want? They don't mention that 1.1% of the time creates unbelievable accidents, hazards, balls of fire over Ohio and other states, etc. right? It's greatly misleading, and why does Politico print that? For the money, Lebowski, that's why. But get a load of the second twist here. Politico criticized the lever because they said, the lever is trying to fundraise off this disaster. Wait, what were they doing? They were asking for their readers to subscribe like the New York Times does.
Right.
That's literally the business model of every paper in America. But Politico didn't like that.
That the lever did good reporting on East Palestine, reporting that Politico would never do in a million years because they would upset their corporate sponsors.
And
is that what you're referring to?
So they go out of their way to say, can you believe what the lever's doing and how they're getting money from their readers? Outrageous.
You know
and then
what?
they go take a bag of cash from the guys who caused the accident, and they don't. No, but that's not biased.
No, guys. Why don't we upset Politico further? And if you have the funds available, please subscribe to The Lever. Because honestly, I said it before, I'm gonna say it again. Their reporting on the train derailment in East Palestine was essential in understanding how the effort to deregulate the safety protocols happened, how it worked across multiple administrations. So I would love nothing more than to upset Politico by increasing the subscriber base for The Lever. So please subscribe to them.
Okay, by the way, number one, we say that because no matter what happens, we're honest with you guys, and The Lever has done fantastic reporting. And number two, there's nothing wrong with progressives backing other progressives.
Yes.
There's something very right about it. Almost no one else does it. And Sirota and everyone else there is doing a fantastic job. Politico is a joke. Sirota also pointed out that Punchbowl News is having an event where they're talking to a Republican congressman, Patrick McHenry from North Carolina, and it's sponsored by Apollo Global Management, a private equity company. So these outlets, and they think that is perfectly normal. We get money from private equity, we get money from the train companies, we get money from pharmaceutical companies to do reporting. Do you? Or do you get money to do marketing?
All right, well, you're gonna love this story, Cenk, because it has to do with corporate speech and the corporate speech that lies to us apparently should be protected. So, the FDA has been threatening to crack down on food companies that label their packages as healthy when in reality the product they're selling is anything but. Now, the cereal companies are not happy about these threats. They love labeling unhealthy, sugar-laden cereals as healthy, and so they plan on fighting back. How are they gonna do it? Well, by claiming that what the FDA wants to do violates their free speech rights.
Yeah.
So more details on this. The rule from the FDA the rule limits cereals, for example, to no more than 2.5 grams of sugar per serving in order to be labeled as healthy. A restriction food manufacturers claim would exclude over 95% of ready-to-eat cereals on the market. That's why Big Cereal is very unhappy about this proposed rule. A few weeks ago, the biggest cereal producers in the country, like Kellogg's and General Mills, threatened to file a lawsuit because, as I said, they claim that what the FDA is trying to do here violates their free speech rights. The rule, if finalized in its present form, the companies wrote, would be open to legal challenge in that it violates the First Amendment by prohibiting truthful, non-misleading claims in an unjustified manner and also exceeds FDA's statutory authority in several ways. Now, the reason why I wanted to talk about this with you, Cenk, is because unfortunately, there is precedent indicating that corporations are people with constitutional rights.
Oh yeah, for sure. This is actually what led to the destruction of our democracy in the first place. It was all Fruity Pebbles' fault. Okay, no, seriously, guys. There's this particular issue, and then the larger issue that Anna's talking about. In the case of this particular issue, is it really a freedom of speech issue? So corporations have glommed onto this Republican idea that we'll just call everything freedom when we abuse our employees, our customers, et cetera, or the general public. So can you say, hey, this is vitamin C, when in reality it's poison? No, you cannot say that. You don't have the freedom of speech to call something healthy for you when, for example, if it was toxic or poison. Obviously not, right? That's the government's job, is to regulate that. Regulation just means laws. They pass a law so that these companies can't rob us, hurt us, et cetera, right? And the companies hate that, so they go with the help of the Republican Party and go, freedom! We need freedom to say that Fruity Pebbles is broccoli. Okay, and then their explanations here are hilarious. They're like, well, cereal has a lot of nutrients. Does it?
No, it doesn't.
And they're like, well, it could have a lot of nutrients if you eat it with other things at breakfast. Come on, guys, do better. Do better.
How about you just eat the other things and not the cereal?
Yeah,
and by the way, like, look, for the longest time, and I think for some people still, children eat the cereal for breakfast, like as their first meal of the day.
Oh, I'll give you a sense of how bad it is.
Yeah.
And look, I did it, and look at me.
And the serving sizes, by the way, the suggested serving sizes are so small that typically children eat double that amount Because like, who's gonna eat like a little handful of Fruity Pebbles if they're gonna have a cereal for breakfast?
If I remember right, it's 24 times the amount of sugar that you're supposed to have. 24 times, okay? And they got high fructose corn syrup in there. Those guys are a huge part of the lobbying organizations that's pushing this agenda. But the overall thing that Anna mentioned in the beginning is, the Supreme Court has ruled that in different instances, although they didn't technically rule that, it's the longer explanation is in my book, Justice is Coming. Chapter 4, you're gonna love it. But the short explanation is they said corporations are human beings. Human beings have speech rights. By the way, money is speech, and you have unlimited speech rights. So that means you have unlimited right to spend money in politics. That's how they were able to bribe every single politician and absolutely destroy our democracy. But in this case, now they're saying, not only do I get to bribe all the politicians, wait a minute, I'm a human being over here at Lucky Charms. And so I'm going to go ahead and say that I have speech rights to lie to you.
Insane.
So you can't say that I'm not healthy. You have to allow me to pretend that I'm healthy, full well knowing it isn't true.
Okay, now I know this is a little bit of a tangent, but it's related because every time you talk to a right winger about the necessity for Medicare for all, for single payer healthcare, the argument inevitably ends up pivoting to, well, Americans are too fat. That's the problem. That's why our healthcare system is so expensive. Americans are just so fat, they can't control how fat they are. It is so difficult to stay in shape in this country when you have incredibly deceptive marketing in regard to the foods we're eating. There are all sorts of subsidized things in our food, things like high fructose corn syrup, of course, because corn is subsidized, those kinds of things that fatten us up, right? And really, you have to go out of your way to learn about these things. And if you don't have the resources for that, you have no idea what you're putting into your body and how it's having a negative impact on your body. The other thing is, let's just keep it real, okay? When it comes to academic research on what is healthy and what is not healthy, what you should eat, how you can have a healthy diet, a lot of that is also funded by the very food companies that want to convince you that their unhealthy foods or whatever unhealthy thing they're selling on the market is actually really good for you. That's going on as well. There's all sorts of deceptive nonsense happening that makes it incredibly difficult to really suss out what is and is not healthy. And the deceptive marketing is certainly part of that.
Yeah, guys, to say that you have unlimited rights on anything does not make sense. You don't have the right to yell fire in a crowded theater because it might hurt other people. You don't have the right to say that your product is healthy when it isn't healthy. So pretending that it's all these things that it isn't, Anna's right. Not only can the government regulate that, but they absolutely should regulate that. But on top of that, it does make us more overweight as a country. Look, they have nonstop propaganda, these companies, and that's their job. Their job's to do marketing, but our jobs as citizens is to regulate them through our representatives, right? So I'll get back to one of their marketing in a second, but they're saying that no, I should be able to flat out lie to the customers. One of them is they say, well, this is really helping vulnerable communities because cereal is less expensive, so it's going to minorities and stuff like that. No, I know, I'm in that vulnerable community.
No, cereal is not that inexpensive. Let me also just note that. But
well, as I said many times earlier, when I was a struggling talk show host for a long time, and I had made no money, I would ration the cereal, and it is a lot less expensive compared to other items of food because there's so much you can get out of one box. That's true. So I was in that vulnerable community and I did exactly what they're talking about. But you didn't have to lie to me and tell me that tricks are good for your health. That's an absurd lie.
Yeah.
I gotta do it, I understand it, right? But don't brag that you're helping vulnerable communities.
Yeah, my favorite argument of theirs, which is along the same lines, is no, actually cereal's excellent for your health because you eat it with milk and milk has calcium, and so you're welcome.
Yeah, that's the milk, that's not the cereal, let alone the fact that you're filled with high fructose corn syrup. That makes, by the way, that's why when I was poor, I gained weight because you eat really unhealthy food because it's cheap. and the cheap food is filled with toxic sludge. But they don't want you knowing about that, and that's what this story's about.
All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, we've got more news for you, including the funding behind all of the insane people who show up to school board meetings and yell at the school board members. Who's behind it? Great reporting here by Walker Bragman that I want to share with you, so don't miss it.
All right, back on TYT Social Break. Chaplain Fred wrote in, hi, Anna and Cenk. Mexican government already does this, and all the corporations wanted to jump ship out of Mexico. Mexican president told them to label the right information or they can leave Mexico. That's a boss, right? But the problem with our politicians, they're not the bosses. They're the servants. The corporations are the bosses, and politicians do as they're told by their donors. The fact that we're more corrupt than Mexico, given the enormous drug cartel problem that Mexico has, is really quite a feat. Congrats, America. So Cat67 says, I wonder how many politicians would not be in office if bribery were not legal. Well, as you'll see in another chapter of Justice is Coming, until recently, 97% of the time, the person running for Congress that had more money won. Whether they were a Democrat or a Republican, liberal, conservative, nothing mattered. The only thing that mattered is money, okay? And so how many of these particular politicians would be in office if it weren't for bribery? Well, you have your answer, 3%. The rest of them take bribes, and they're there specifically because they were willing to take the bribes and do as they are told. So that's the sorry state we're in. Actually, the numbers are a little bit better these days because of Justice Democrats. But you'll see that in the book too. If you want to pre-order, tyt.com/justice. Poison Kiss explains the jacket situation. The shoulders are padded because the suit jacket is designed after military uniforms. The suit jacket by design tries to make various V shapes. I appreciate the information. I appreciate that someone's trying to make a V shape out of me. So God bless. Chicken Stroker, the chain smoker, writes in, did he forget that they are in favor of prison labor? I meant
that's a good point.
It's such a good point. In fact, Anna made that point in our production meeting about the Florida guy saying the party that's in favor of slavery and indentured servitude. Well, that's the Republican Party now when they say that prison labor should be forced to do that. Franklin Sharpslicer is back with another poem. Forsooth, you're here to tell the truth. There's also no dispute, you all are rather cute. 8 hours of TYT is better than 1 hour of GOP. You rock.
I like it.
Franklin, thank you, brother. Excellent poem, we appreciate it. Sounds like truth to me. Deanne Loso writes in on YouTube memberships saying, I've been watching TYT for 12 years. I recently realized that I've actually been a progressive my entire life, even though I didn't know what my political affiliation was called. Thank you for truth. This is another giant theme of my book, which is, no, 2/3 of the country is progressive. The only reason you don't realize it is because of corporate media. And so you'll see my evidence for that, overwhelming evidence for that in the book. Modern Relic says, I went to a hockey game and a lobbying broke out. That's a funny joke. And Miss Anonymous 617 says, love Walter Masterson, so happy he's on TYT. Check him out on Rebel Headquarters. Thank you guys, we'll be back. Back on TYT, Cenk, Anna, and a number of American heroes. Holy Beer Dragon is one of them because he gifted 5 subs on Twitch. Way to look out for everybody else. Love you for it. Ricodius Rex and Mary Ann Kane just became members on YouTube. So you guys are amazing. Everybody, you can do it at tyt.com/join. Be part of the positive change we're trying to create in this country. Casper.
Any other comments?
No, I'm going to save the really nice comment about you for later.
Okay. All right, fine. Let's do it.
This book is a very clever and very subtly written attempting to promote an agenda that is sexual in nature.
When you look up this book on Destiny Discover on the schools and county website, the book says this book is about 2 male penguins that fall in love. What could the intention of this book be? You got 2 male penguins that are falling in love. And in our society, I'm sure that's not getting at anything. God says homosexuality is a sin. So perverting the grace is saying you're loved anyways. And Jesus did not say to the adulteress who was going to be stoned by people, go and keep sinning and committing adultery. He said, go and sin no more.
I want to ask you, who gave us the institution of marriage? It is the Almighty God who made the heavens and earth, who made each and every one of us in his image, male and female, for his glory and his glory alone. Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask you, believe that sodomy is a sin against the Almighty God?
This is not the time to ask questions. I'll be glad to talk to you afterwards.
What is going on? And why does it feel as though all of a sudden there are all sorts of people showing up at school board meetings, panicking over the kinds of books that are offered in school libraries? Is it an organic effort or is there something else happening here? And some pretty excellent reporting by Walker Bragman kind of unloads on the shadowy billionaires behind the scenes who have funded this effort by a group, a conservative group known as Moms for Liberty. Now they claim to be a grassroots effort. They're just trying to take over the public school system to root out the woke agenda. But this reporting shows that it's anything but organic or grassroots, and there's quite a bit of dark money behind it. So let's get to the details, shall we? According to Bragman's reporting, Moms for Liberty, MFL, has emerged as a national force boasting more than 200,000 members or so-called joyful warriors and 200 chapters in 44 states. The 501c4 social welfare nonprofit has a connected 501c3 charity and several political action committees. Now, the group was founded at the height of the pandemic. The founders of the group were salty about the fact that schools had shut down, that students who would return to the classroom had to wear masks, and they wanted to do something about it. So they decided to form Moms for Liberty, and then all of a sudden they're featured on conservative media. They're getting all this funding. What's going on here? Now, MFL has been rallying parents against transgender accommodations in schools, the teaching of, honestly, any race-based curriculum. So they call it critical race theory, but that's really just a catch-all for anything that touches on the history of racism in this country. And also, they want to root out anything having to do with LGBTQ plus rights. Now, I'm going to get to their funding in just a moment, but before I do, Cenk, I mean, the right wing, any cause they have, it's a well-oiled machine. They've got this infrastructure set up that I'm gonna be honest, it's enviable, right?
Oh, 100%. So look, I love this piece by Walker Bragman. One, because it exposes this group as fake grassroots and is an interesting story in and of itself. But two, because it's a great story of how the imbalance is created between the right wing and the left wing. Whenever a group pops up, even if it started as grassroots in the beginning, like 2 randos start to decide to form a group. Well, what happens? 2 things happen in the right wing side. One is money flows in, right? Instantly, billionaires that have a vested interest in X, Y, or Z, hating gay people, hating black people, in this case, but mainly it's usually for other propaganda reasons. You know, they will come in and fund groups like this, and you see this group instantly starts getting secret donors in huge amounts, right? And then the second thing that happens is right-wing media is very well organized, so they start appearing on all the shows and get extra publicity. That then fills their coffers with small donors, which then allows them to pretend they were grassroots all along, when that's actually a very small percentage of the funding that they're getting behind the scenes, right? And then that takes rando groups that started as nothing and boom, elevates them with money and media.
In fact, in 2021, all of a sudden they received this massive contribution from a mystery donor. And I should note, part of the problem is that dark money is allowed, right? So they do not have to disclose who their donors are. But through Bragman's reporting, we learned quite a bit in regard to like who's behind funding this effort. And then in terms of the right-wing media, I mean, all you have to do is Google Moms for Liberty and you'll see them on Tucker Carlson's show, you'll see them on Daily Wire, you'll see them all over the place. Because that's the one thing, this is a side note and it's mostly directed toward the left. That's the difference between the right wing and the left wing media. The right wing, because they're so well funded and there's plenty of money to go around, they don't have to, I guess, fight for limited or scarce resources. They're very friendly with each other and they work together to amplify whatever cause they're working on or whatever cause they care about. Whereas on the left, there's so much infighting that it's nearly impossible to amplify the message that we want to amplify because we're too busy fighting each other. You get what I'm saying?
I do, and there's two reasons for that too. So look, but the third benefit that these right-wing groups get is once right-wing media has legitimized them and the amount of money that they have raised, quote unquote, legitimized them, then mainstream media covers them nonstop. So then they get into this virtuous circle of nonstop coverage. Now, let's go to the left wing as Anna is talking about. What happens there? Well, there's some corporate Democratic groups that pretend to be, care about a cause or two, right? And they go through a similar process. They're funded by, Democratic billionaires, et cetera, but they never ever push for progressive proposals because that would defeat the whole point. So if you're a genuine progressive group, well, no legislators come to help you. That's even the most progressive legislators are very loath to help progressive groups. They think, I don't know if they think it's beneath them, I don't know what it is, okay? But they won't help you. Money, there's no money for progressives. Even the Democratic donors want tax cuts, deregulation, et cetera. They don't want to help progressives who would raise their taxes and give people health care and get them higher wages. So there's just no money, so there's no promotion. And then in terms of progressive media, I've been interviewing folks like this for years on TYT. I don't see almost anyone else doing it, right? So there isn't any cavalry outside of us to help folks. So, and then that leads to the second phenomenon, which Anna was referring to, which is, okay, number one, you didn't have any help to begin with, none of the infrastructure the right wing has. And then second of all, we have a problem on the left, which is we love to tear each other apart. Okay, so if a group is doing well, you name the category, right? But if a group's doing well, most other progressives will, or leftists, et cetera, whatever, so portions of the left wing will attack that group.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And if, God forbid, any of their leaders or something did something wrong, like when they were 13, they'll be like, okay, that's it. We don't even need the right wing. We don't even need the corporate guys.
Right.
We're gonna tear you down.
Yeah, exactly.
So then, that creates a system where the right wing is constantly being lifted up and the progressive left wing is constantly being ripped down. And then those groups don't get extra press from the mainstream media. So then our message never gets out and the right wing message gets out nonstop.
Now, let's talk about the money behind this organization, Moms for Liberty. So business-aligned right-wing groups had long been fighting to restore economic normalcy amid the pandemic, waging a war on public health measures, and schools quickly emerged as a battlefront. An April 2020 school reopening guide from consultancy McKinsey & Company estimated that 27 million Americans needed childcare to work. And companies, corporations rely on the public school system as childcare for their employees. When public schools are shut down, parents can't afford the astronomical prices associated with private childcare companies. And so they have no choice but to stay home and provide the childcare, because what's the point of working if your entire paycheck is gonna go toward childcare for your kids so you can work. Now, so that is what made the companies so obsessed with the issue of schools reopening, right? And so they were lobbying hard to get the schools to reopen as quickly as possible because they wanted their workers back in the office. So after campaign finance records showed that Moms for Liberty had paid okay, so the people behind, let me backtrack for a second. So the original founders of Moms for Liberty, 3 women, woman named Tina Deskowick, Tiffany Justice, and Bridget Ziegler, and her husband, by the way, is Christian. Her husband, Christian, is a Sarasota County commissioner, so he's involved in politics in Florida. Now, after campaign finance records showed that Moms for Liberty had paid Ziegler's husband's company $21,000, she distanced herself from the group, but she's still involved. She's just not in the group, right? With that said, in 2021, 70% of Moms for Liberty's total $370,000 in revenue came from contributions and grants. Of that, 40% came from a single anonymous $100,000 donation. Nearly 60% of its contributions and grants, total 40% of its overall revenue, came from just 5 anonymous donations, okay? Only about $28,000, or less than 8% of the group's total revenue, came from other revenue, which includes sales of merchandise, okay? So the big donations are coming from dark money donors, and they're not disclosing who they are. And so they have connections to the Council for National Policy, CNP, and they've been described by the New York Times as a little known club of a few hundred of the most powerful conservatives in the country, okay? The Betsy DeVos's family, they're part of this organization, and Betsy DeVos, lo and behold, ended up being a keynote speaker for the Council for National Policy's annual event, and also the Moms for Liberty event as well. Then there's Morton Blackwell. He's a member of the Council for National Policy and the president of the Leadership Institute, which is a Virginia-based dark money outfit dedicated to training conservatives to get involved in politics. The Leadership Institute was the largest sponsor of Moms for Liberty's 2022 annual conference. MFL co-founder Ziegler, who has since left the group, is the current director of school board programs there. So that's why she's still involved, although she's not still in the group. And MFL's website directs parents to the Institute and other CNP-connected sponsors of its 2022 conference, the Koch-funded Heritage Foundation, of course, a DC-based conservative think tank that we talk about quite often. And so it's the Koch brothers, they're behind it, clearly. The same players that we are all familiar with on the right, the big funders on the right, they're the ones behind this effort with Moms for Liberty.
So you get a progressive reporter, and all of a sudden they're exposing what's actually happening behind the scenes. Now, have you ever read any mainstream media articles about this group that explain to you that no, they're just funded by billionaires? They make it, the mainstream media helps them with their propaganda by making it appear that it's a grassroots group that is worried about a war on parents. That's the propaganda that they use. Now, in reality, it's actually funded by guys who are doing a war on teachers, because teachers give to the Democratic Party, the teachers union does, and they want to privatize education so they can make a profit off of it. And the way to do that is to destroy public education. Did you ever get that sense from any of the mainstream media coverage of this story? No, you get the sense that, oh, these are actually aggrieved parents that are so worried, and they all got together and they're just worried about how the Democrats are going after parents. No, total nonsense. And guys, you can tell how much they lie with that fun little T-shirt fact, right? So the leaders of the group are like, oh, we're making money mainly from the T-shirts. We sell so many T-shirts, that's how, yeah. But they know their own books. They know that that's 8% of their revenue. Why are they saying that 8% of their revenue is the major way that they make money? Because they don't want you to find out they're actually funded by these right-wing organizations with a completely different agenda that they're not telling you at all.
Exactly. All right, we got to take a break. So when we come back for the second hour of the show, it's when the fun begins, okay? We're gonna talk about an oil baron who got scammed 3 separate times and lost billions. So, I mean, do I need to say more? It's gonna be a party. Don't miss it. We'll be right back.
You're about to watch some behind the scenes footage of the Young Turks. Ooh. Now, these are partial videos. If you want to get all of them, you become a member, go to tyt.com/join, and you'll get all the behind the scenes of me, Anna, John, JR, a little bit reality show like. tyt.com/join and enjoy this.
You know what you're seeing behind me? Jersey. Hold. Watch me flip this camera. However I flip it. Do I flip it like this? No, I just took a picture. I'm bitzing right now.
What?
Behind the scenes.
Oh, okay. For members? I don't have my face on.
She doesn't have her face on, folks. Oh, that's JR's ass right there.
You can't take 5 minutes off, can you?
No, I can't, Johnny Pie. I said it was live stream, but I was lying. It's not a live stream. It's just for members.
Bitsy, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat.
Animals are innocent.
Control room and the insanity is obviously there.
Right now, as you can see, I'm directing or tech directing.
I'm so happy to be here.
This is what like a Labor Day beard looks like for Cenk. Man, you're a Young Turks viewer if you recognize me like this.
Oh, thank you. You are the one person in my life I would love to meet.
What's going on, guys? This is a Bitsy or a BTS or behind the scenes with Hassan Piker, aka Woke Bay.
Oh, hi. I didn't see you there.
I have finished my show, The Damage Report, and now I get into a really awkward time of the day.
When I'm sitting, the control room is right there. So I can see Bart.
This is the Pittsburgh office, by the way. Referred to often as the boiler room.
You see how it's ripped? Is it super unprofessional to wear that at a business meeting? Or am I like cool, rebel?
I just finished doing the power panel and I'm fired up.
What do you do for TYT?
Not a whole lot.
If you're frantically tweeting at us that something's broken, thank you, because I'm fixing it.
And thank you for being a TYT member.
Super last thing, because there's always got to be a super last thing.
Oh, that was disastrous.
This has been behind the scenes, behind the scenes.
Welcome to Indisputable. I'm your host, Dr. Rashad Richard. We got a lot happening today. But what do we do on this show? We tell the truth. You know why we tell the truth? Because the truth is simply indisputable.
Rashad, great to be here. Congratulations on the new show. And I gotta let everybody know that Rashad and I go way back.
Here's the pattern that we see in all of these Karen stories. They think they own stuff they do not own. Now, where does that come from? I don't know, maybe slavery. Maybe they think they should still own black people.
This is what happens when Karens weaponize the police.
When you're used to privilege, equality seems like oppression.
It hits you in a certain way when someone is holding you against your will, treating you like you're a criminal and you're an innocent person. This is something that black people face no matter where they are.
A stronger black economy lends itself to a stronger, greater economy. Don't think it's exclusive of you, it's inclusive of you.
What's your beef with critical race theory?
It adds more fuel to the fire of the racist tendencies that we already have.
We have a generation of problem solvers that can remedy the problem if they are properly taught what the problem is.
You know who created redlining in this country? It was a white liberal.
I don't give a damn who created it. If it's a racist policy, Shelley, here's what I don't know. I don't know. See, there you go filibustering, brother. You're scared of this truth, but you're gonna get it, though.
We've been around for about 20 years and we have about 20 billion views. Am I proud of that? Hell yeah, I am. We put out 20 billion messages in a bottle. Have we helped to move now 2 generations, millennials and Gen Z, to become progressive? Yes, those numbers are real. We moved generations. Were we the only ones? Of course not. But we have been the largest online news show for now decades.
Corn Pop was a bad dude, and he ran a bunch of bad boys.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. Are you on one nice comment about you?
Maybe.
All right, let's do it. Dead in the Scene writes in, 15 amazing months with the TYT crew. Anna, thank you for always making me want to do better and fight when I want to give up. I'm a lesbian and being in the Midwest, and I'm terrified right now. Thanks for being an ally.
Thank you for saying that, but they want you to be scared. Don't be scared. Make them scared of you, okay?
We sell a shirt here on shoptyt.com that said, "We are the ones who knock." That's of course a reference to Walter White. We're not in danger, we are the danger, okay? So get up, fight back, and make them afraid of us. Politically, rhetorically, in the battlefield of ideas.
He's in a new show called Your Honor. Have you heard about that?
No.
Yeah, it makes me stressed out when I'm watching it. It's a good show, it's just very stressful. Yeah. You know, like when you're watching shows or movies where the good guy is like bungling things, there's all these foibles and it's like stop with the foibles.
Oh, the foibles can be stressful.
Right?
Yeah, we have enough foibles in real life.
We do. This show stresses me out. Anyway, let's move on. We've got news. Okay. Story, it's like my favorite story of the day. All right, so. A New York oil baron by the name of Robert Belfer has lost billions of dollars getting scammed. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. 3 times.
3 times a charm.
3 times. Okay, so we hear all these myths about most ultra wealthy individuals, like, but they took all this risk, they worked so hard, they're the job creators, but above all, they're just smarter than you. They're geniuses. Well, let me tell you more about Mr. Robert Belfer, and you tell me if you think he's a genius. So first, he lost billions in the Enron collapse. And look, I'll be fair, this didn't really have anything to do with him because he inherited his father's oil drilling business. But here's how it all worked out, okay? So apparently, like the company that his father founded, the oil company that his father founded, was eventually bought by Enron, but the Belfer family was the largest stakeholder. And so when Enron collapsed, they lost a lot, billions of dollars. Okay, so that's point number 1. The documents show that Belfer Investment Partners and Lime Partners LLC, 2 firms linked to the family business, held shares in FTX. So that's the most recent issue. And its US subsidiary, FTX US. The 2 entities held a combined stake of $34.5 million as of early last year when they participated in an equity fundraising round, according to court documents cited by Financial Times. And the other time that he was scammed was by Bernie Madoff.
Of course.
Billions of dollars.
Overall. So look, there's a couple of fun things here. And all the stories today are about things that are in my book, but I have a section called The Myth of Meritocracy. So I want meritocracy to be real. I love the idea, right? But is it real? Well, let me give you some facts. Of the people that are on the Forbes 400 list of billionaires, 30% of them inherited at least $50 million, okay? If my parents left me $50 million, all of a sudden I would have a lot of merit too, okay? So, but in our world, people go, oh yeah, no, they merit, okay? So 20% of the list inherited all of their money, okay? And did nothing with it. They didn't add a penny to the money, okay? So about half the list just flat out was given the money. But we need the myth of meritocracy so that you can dress up the injustice of economic inequality in the disguise of justice. Hey, the rich earned it, they deserve it. And if you're poor or middle class, you didn't deserve it because we have a meritocracy. So then wait a minute, the income inequality makes it seem like, oh, that's the fair thing. Right. The rich should dominate because they had all this merit. And you should be at the bottom because you don't have any merit, you weren't even born rich. Okay.
But like the worst part about that myth is the feeling you get when you're approaching 30. It's the same feeling I got when I was approaching 30, where you realize that all that hard work actually didn't matter that much, right? Like it mattered to some extent. I'm doing what I love for work, what I love most days, to be fair. It's an incredibly difficult job that's oftentimes very depressing. But nonetheless, like the idea I had of, oh my God, all you have to do is get an education, work really, really hard, and you're gonna be set, stay financially stable. You're not gonna have a worry about money ever again. And that's just not true. That's just not true. The hardest working people in the country are oftentimes the poorest. Let's just keep it real.
Yeah, and look, guys, it doesn't mean you can't possibly make it. So, for example,
you just have to rob people. That's it.
Yeah.
Legally, through legal means.
No. And honest people have made it, including people in our families. But
did they?
Well, I think so. So look here, let me give you 2 quick examples. You'll know what I'm talking about, including somebody in my family that had dealt with something along the lines of the Belfers. Okay, interesting. So my dad's side, dirt poor, no money at all. Never had a toy, didn't have electricity in their homes. I mean, old school poor, right? My mom's side of the family actually did relatively well for the small town in Turkey that they came from. There's money that was left over from like 500 years ago, but my grandfather had some of it still left 500 years later, right? And because they had land, and land is easy to
It's good to have land.
But when they moved from the little town of Kilis near the Syrian border to the big city Istanbul, they take it in the form of money. And my grandfather grew up wealthy, right? You know, within the context of that town. So he was always looking to get rich by not working. Okay, so I'm not saying he was lazy, like he was a dentist, he had a real profession.
But Cenk, do you understand that he had the right mentality?
Well, he did and he didn't.
No, but seriously, because I feel like the richest people have that thought process. Like, how can I make the most amount of money by doing as little as possible? Whereas everyone else was conditioned to think, in order to get to that place, you gotta work really, really hard. Just work really hard. First one in, last one out.
Yeah, but the problem with folks who don't wanna work for it is that oftentimes they'll take too much risk because they just, when they see the money, they get too excited, right? So my grandfather fell for a lot of those tricks. And it looks like this guy does too. Like when you get, your whole life is easy money and somebody says, hey, I've got easy money for you, he thinks, yeah, that's normal. No, right? And he's not thinking, oh, that's a scam. There's no way that money's that easy.
Think about how you treat money that was just given to you versus how you treat money that you had to earn through the hard work, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I mean, I can see myself getting real careless with money I didn't earn, money that was handed to me. And I would know because I was a teenager once that got, got an allowance, and I spent that money like it was nothing, right? I didn't care. So like, yeah, I mean, this guy has been perpetually trained. Like it'll never end. Of course he's gonna invest it in stupid things like FTX and cryptocurrency, right?
Yeah, now you are absolutely right. On the other hand, my dad basically lived the American dream. He went from being that poor, right, to running a company here in America, running a company in Turkey, and did okay, did pretty good. We had a nice house in New Jersey, and we got a good education. Feel terrific about it. Now, by the way, do you want to know why? Because my dad got a free college education in Turkey. If he had not gotten a free college education, we'd still be on the farm in southeastern Turkey. It was progressive principles in Turkey in the 1960s, which apparently they could afford, but the richest nation on earth can't afford, right? That propelled that possibility of meritocracy, which unfortunately in America has been cut off a lot. And Anna, you're absolutely right. Since my dad earned it, every dollar was precious to him.
Yeah.
But he wouldn't do like normal investments because he's like, oh, stock market, they're going to rob you, no way.
Oh my God, we have the same dad, it's crazy. Because same thing with my dad. My dad, he refused to invest in the stock market because he said he doesn't trust the stock market. He even used the word evil once when he was talking to me about it.
All Turkish immigrant parents were like, stock market, terrible.
Yeah, my dad's like,
you go up, you go down, you're gonna lose all the money.
No, but that's the thing about parents, right? Because you're this little snotty-nosed kid who just really underestimates the intelligence of your parents. And then you grow up and you realize how incredibly enlightened and smart your parents are. So like my dad, he understood how the whole system works, like how providing returns for investors ends up screwing over workers and all that stuff. So he's like, But he knew he needed to retire, right? And so he had to invest in something. So he invested in an apartment building, which he's about to lose because the moratorium is never ending and mom and pop landlords get zero help. And I know the left likes to equate corporate landlords with mom and pop landlords, except that's his retirement and he's screwed. So when you say he's made it, I don't think so.
It's all relative, of course, yeah, because folks who made it on their own oftentimes are one mistake away from, or one bad occurrence away from losing it all. But that's what gives them caution. Whereas guys like Belford don't have that caution because they've been swimming in money their whole lives. That's why it's not an accident that he was involved in 3 different scams, because he can't recognize a scam, because to him, everything's easy money. Right? So every time he's surprised, like, I don't know, I got easy money from my parents. I got billions of dollars for doing nothing. And I thought I was gonna get billions of dollars for doing nothing again.
Look at the poor schmuck. He looks happy though. Yeah. He looks happy.
There's one last thing that's part of this. You know how we covered the story the other day of a woman that was involved in 3 different mass shootings, right?
Yeah.
There was one that was in 2, and then there was another one that was in 3, right? Because there's so many mass shootings. Well, this guy's kind of the equivalent of that with scams, because now there's nonstop scams.
But also imagine being so wealthy that you could lose billions. You can lose a ton of money 3 separate occasions and not be destroyed for the rest of your life.
Yeah, you know why? Because he had a lot of merit.
Yep, the merit saved him at the end of the day. That's right.
His parents gave him a lot of merit when they passed away.
All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, I'll tell you about a local news reporter in Dallas who ended up getting fired because she said the word bruh to a local politician. Is that really why she got fired? It's an interesting story. Don't miss it. We'll be right back.
Foresto Mintero writes in on Super Chat, I'm begging Anna for mercy. I was sitting on the couch at 2 a.m. this morning trying to get oligarchy out of my head.
You guys want me to stop, but it's so fun. It's so fun. We played it again yesterday.
I could tell because someone else also wrote in.
Are they mad at me?
I can't find it. Anyway, they were like, I can't get oligarchy out of my head. So it's all your fault, Anna. The whole country's blaming you.
By the way, real quick, I just want to clarify something. Someone tweeted at me yesterday about how like you got to listen to the Prince version because it's so much better. No, you guys don't get it. I don't show the oligarchy song because I think it's good. I show it because it's so bad that I'm amused by it. Like, it's a little catchy and I like it for that reason. But it's just funny, like it's a funny video.
100% understand.
Yeah.
Chris Birch writes in, Cenk, after I complimented Anna, I have to say my wife says you remind her of Tony Soprano. Bosses don't wear shorts though.
Like gabagoo.
Yeah, you goddamn right we don't, okay? That's why I always got jeans on. Okay, anyways, I don't know if being reminded of Tony Soprano's Anyways, God bless. Thank you. Appreciate all of
Tony
you.
Soprano was a likable guy.
Yeah, and he was a boss.
Yeah.
So I like that. Brad Davis said today I could not stop. Oh, there it is. I could not stop singing Oligarchy. I think I agree with Anna and kind of like it. Anna, you've done great harm to this country. You have. Let's just be
No, don't
honest
say
about it.
that.
Okay. A1 Andy says, Jake, our friend and new right-wing grifting podcaster Patrick Bet-David tweeted at Bernie Sanders today. He invited, his invite included, are you only going to go on shows who share your anger for capitalism, LOL. Hey, listen, I didn't see the clips of him having Jimmy Dore and David Rubin lie on me about me on his show. Either send that to me, tweet it to me or something like that. I don't know.
Who is this person?
Patrick Bet-David. Remember I did that interview with the guy in Florida? It was like
Oh, yeah.
and tell him that he shouldn't have liars on his show. Anyway, Chris Birch also wrote in, so speaking of North Carolina, we're fixing to pass medical marijuana now. We're Old Tobacco Road in the second biggest farming state in the US, got the ability to grow, right? No, it went to corporations. Of course, Anna, stay beautiful. Okay, that's a lot of love out there.
Thank you.
Well, here's one for me. Donald Bussey said, love the Elmer Fudd reference.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you, can do. We'll be back. Back on TYT, Jake and Anna with you guys. News.
The story is a doozy. A journalist in Dallas was fired this month after she referred to the city's mayor as bruh in a tweet. At least that is the reason she was given for why she was let go from the local news outlet. But as it turns out, there might be a different reason because she was involved in a labor effort that probably did not bode well for the corporate offices for this company. So this is the Dallas Morning News. Again, it's in Dallas, it's in the name. And the reporter is Megan Mangrum. And unfortunately, she's looking for a job today because she was let go. So let's get to the beginning of the story and explain what happened. It all started on February 11th when Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson decided to go after local media and criticize them for the way they were covering crime. He argued that they were focusing too much on crime when in reality, crime had gone down in Dallas. So let's go to his tweet. He writes, our local media have no interest in reporting on this data, which is why you haven't heard about it. But you better believe if Dallas was leading the nation in violent crime increases, you'd be hearing about it daily. It's sad, really. Kudos to Dallas PD and our residents. And let's keep that up for a minute because I just want to note that New York, Los Angeles, we're not winning with them. Same with Chicago. I mean, it's all red because you see increases in murders, rapes, robberies, aggravated assault. But to the mayor's point, if you look at Dallas, it's in the green. They're doing pretty well when it comes to violent crime. So violent crime has in fact decreased in Dallas based on the numbers that he's sharing in that graphic. Now,
let me just say one quick thing about this.
Sure.
So far, the mayor hasn't done anything wrong.
Right.
He's bragging about how well his administration is doing, and he's not wrong that oftentimes bad news gets covered way more than good news.
Exactly.
And he's like, look at our good stats. He's gonna lose this later, but so far so good.
Exactly, and when it comes to local news especially, the whole ideology of if it bleeds, it leads is certainly dominant. Like you can see it, right? Now, with that said, Mangrum decides to respond to the tweet, and that is where she uses the word bruh. Okay, so let's go to that. Bruh, national news is always going to chase the trend, cultivate relationships with quality local news partnerships. And when she tweeted that, she also provided examples of the reporting they had done that did draw attention to the decreases in crime, right? Because she wanted to make a point and she also wanted to defend her newsroom and her colleagues. Well, he didn't like that. We'll get to what he said in just a moment, but she later told Dallas Magazine, which was covering the story, standing up for my colleagues and the work that we do when I know we're doing good and honest work is something I pride myself on and something that I look for in my colleagues and in my workplace as well. Nonetheless, the mayor and his staff apparently didn't take too kindly to the fact that she used the word bruh. And here is how he responded to her: bruh, have we met? And then he also wrote, gotta love when folks let their inherent bias show. I get to be addressed as bruh by someone who writes for my daily local paper whom I've never met.
That's where he lost me. Yeah, so her response was perfectly fine. She's pointing out the good work that they're doing, and she's doing it in a fun, irreverent way. His first response is fine. I never met you, okay, so you're not my bruh. No problem with that. Wait, why are we getting into identity issues on bruh though? Like all of a sudden this story took a turn.
Yeah.
And it's gonna take a couple more disastrous turns in a second. But bruh is not 1% racial.
Let me be upfront about my bias, because I have a bias when it comes to this specific story actually. For people who watch the show regularly, you'll probably notice that I use the word homeboy a lot, and I use it in reference to politicians of every background imaginable. I've used it in response to Biden, I've used it in response to a bunch of different people, right? The one time I used it in regard to someone in a story we were doing who is black, I got a tweet about how I'm racist for using the word homeboy.
But to be fair to that person, they might not have ever seen you use homeboy in all the other contexts.
But when was homeboy specifically a word used in reference to black people? Never.
Well, I don't know that that's less true than bruh, okay? But overall, I've seen you call Chuck Grassley homeboy.
That's right.
And Chuck Grassley ain't nobody's homeboy. Okay, so you use that all the time.
Yeah.
And so people are too ready to pounce, right? Okay, I saw
the worst.
Yeah, I saw one thing once that could go either way, or that 90% of the time goes the right way, not even the wrong way. No, good enough, time to attack, right? And so in this case, bros, look, my son and I say bro to each other all the time. I'm pretty sure we're not racist against one another, okay? And so like anytime my wife says anything cutting about me, like, you could have gotten the food earlier or something, Pro will be in the background going, bruh.
Okay, so
it's not, so let it go.
So after that happened, Mangrum, the reporter, got an email from an editor, and the editor looped in an HR representative and asked to meet. The HR representative asked to meet with the reporter Mangrum, with the executive editor Catrice Hardy. Okay,
you're in trouble.
Yeah. So here's what happened during the meeting. According to Mangrum, Hardy, who is black, asked her if she would have used the word bruh if the mayor were white. Mangrum, who is white, said yes. Her Twitter feed is littered with the word bruh directed at all sorts of accounts, including those belonging to hockey fans and the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife. And she later said this, quote, I would never tell a person of color, oh, it wasn't racist, you shouldn't feel that way. Okay, I will. That wasn't racist, he shouldn't have felt that way. Sorry, that whole thing about oh, you're not a person of color, so you don't get to have a say in this conversation, I'm not buying it. Bruh is not a racist word, period. But let me continue with what she said. But I know my intent, and it was not at all about race. I use that word with my friends, and when I tweet about hockey, it's just part of my vernacular. I grew up in Central Florida, and I'm a millennial. There's an extra layer to this story though, and I think the extra layer indicates why she was really fired. We'll get to that in a moment, but Cenk, thoughts?
Yeah, so I think there's two real reasons she was fired. The one that Anna's about to tell you, which is probably the majority reason, but another reason I think that it went in this direction is because you're not allowed to challenge the powerful, and so she misunderstood her job. So generally speaking, journalism in this country has been perverted so that it's just the marketing arm of corporate rule. So if anyone is powerful and they complain about your coverage, you're gonna be in a world of trouble. And if you work in a mainstream media organization, I'm telling the truth. That you have to tread very, very lightly when it's someone who's powerful and can give you blowback.
I love that you brought that up, because let's remember what the power dynamics are in this story. We're talking about the mayor of the town, of the city of Dallas, the mayor, very powerful position, versus a local news reporter. So I think that's a relevant part of the story because as he's pretending to be aggrieved by the word bruh, do you not understand what the power dynamic is here?
Yeah, well, I think that he does, and he's taking advantage of that power dynamic.
Yes, he's weaponizing racism to go after this local news reporter who provided evidence of her paper covering the story the way that he wants reporters to cover the story.
Yeah, what she said was not even against them.
No.
Okay, so I guess if you're thin-skinned, you could perceive it that way, but the reporters are supposed to challenge the powerful. I know that we've lost sight of that, and they almost never do it anymore, but he get fired because you tweaked someone in power by calling him bruh. And guys, here, I won't speak for Anna, but we largely agree on most things. I'd be surprised if Mayor Johnson's policies weren't aligned with ours. We probably agree with him on policy, right? But I don't know, it's sight unseen, but he's a Democratic mayor of a major city, more likely to be in our direction, right? But that doesn't mean that you need to pull this card and get her fired because she said bruh.
Totally.
Okay, but now the more important reason.
So this is why I think she was really fired, okay? The morning following the meeting that she had with the executive editor, Mangrum helped organize and participated in a union protest in front of the News's downtown headquarters. The Dallas News Guild has wrangled with management over a host of issues, including equal pay for the staff of Al Dia. The union found that some of the staff at the Spanish language publication were earning half of what their peers with similar experience were earning at the News. And by the way, so she takes part in that, and later that day she's fired. She was told that she'd violated the paper's social media policy, though, interesting, they didn't specify what part of the policy she actually broke. Her union did end up filing a complaint on her behalf with the National Labor Relations Board, and I really do hope they come through for her. And by the way, I should clarify this because we don't know for sure, we don't know at all actually, whether the mayor had tried to get her fired. The mayor complained clearly, publicly, but we don't know if he reached out to her employer to try to get her fired.
Yeah, that is an awfully large coincidence in a series of coincidences where people talk about unions and all of a sudden find themselves fired, right? One off, you never know. And in this case, it's not like the Starbucks case where it's an Amazon where there's a series of firings of anyone who mentions a union, right? So it's possible that she got fired because she insulted someone powerful, which would be which at least equally damning of the
I totally agree.
Of the paper, right? But there is no good reason to fire her, and so either way, it does not speak well of that publication.
So she has filed a Freedom of Information request to figure out, whether there was any communication with the mayor to try to get her fired. But for now, she is looking for a job. She had to move back to Florida. She's living with her parents until she can find work. And it's just incredibly sad that this happened to her and she did nothing wrong. So that's where we're at. All right, we should take a break. All right, let's take our break a little early. When we come back, Jordan Peterson tries to own the Pope. We'll see how it played out.
All right, back on TYT. Let's go to members. I Am Sock says Homeboys is discriminatory towards millennials and Zoomers because we'll never own houses. That is funny, as I Am Sock usually is. I don't know if I have given you a Blue Apron card, but I Am Sock, I know that I consistently find you funny. $100 Blue Apron gift card. Rewards at tyt.com. Wolf Dragon Donna says, nail on the head, Anna. We taught very early on to assume the worst. I maintain that it's the source of 99% of our confidence.
Yes, yes. There's something called star manning. You know how there's straw manning? And in straw manning, you're like arguing that someone made an argument that they didn't actually say, like you're putting words in their mouth. Star manning is where you start the conversation by giving the other person the benefit of the doubt, right? Assuming the best instead of assuming the worst. I just think that's gonna be better for the left in particular.
Yep,
Yeah.
100%. History Speaks writes in, I was recently in India for about a month for a research trip. As a historian, I get to travel. It's okay to be jealous. When I returned, I had lost 15 pounds simply because the portion sizes were so much smaller than in the US. Totally right, which relates to the cereal story that we were doing earlier. That's why I once lost 60 pounds doing the 1/3 diet. Just take whatever portion they give you, cut off a third and throw it in the garbage.
Wait, you lost 60 pounds on that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, think about it. I'm thinking about it because I got to do it again. All right, here we go. Modern Relic says, lose one scam, shame on me. Lose two, shame on you. Lose three, you can't get scammed again. That's a good twist. That's a good twist. Nicely done. Modern Relic, Blue Apron gift card. Okay, what is going on? Email at rewards@tyt.com. They verify who you are and that you're a member and you get it. Alpha Dog writes in, if you only knew how much smarter I am because of TYT, the only friends who dare discuss politics with me are those who want to learn.
Ooh, I like you. I like his style.
Yeah, I
He's
like
my
that.
kind of guy.
Well,
or woman, I don't know.
Well, the handle is Alpha Dog.
Okay.
So he's not playing, okay? Thank you, Jenk and Anna, I love you guys. Okay, because of your confident attitude that we both enjoy.
Yes.
Making you even more of an Alpha Dog. Rewards@tyt.com, verify it and get it. Emil Sinclair said about our first story, nothing's going to fundamentally change. All the old wrinkly $100 billion billionaire club have said it ain't happening. Agreed, Anna. So yes, Biden is not going to raise taxes on the rich. It's just nothing but a trick. Dead in the Scene writes in on Twitch, 15 amazing months with the TYT crew. Anna, thank you for, I already read that one, sorry.
It's okay, you can finish it.
Nope, it's a compliment to Anna, we're moving on. Someone from Flint wrote in, I wish I could inherit an oil business. All I got was male pattern baldness. Tradora makes an interesting point. Ask Slap Football sounds like a fun bedroom game. Let me let my spouse know. Okay. Look, don't say I never did anything for you. Okay, that's an invention of mine. This is a concept. And Randy says kleptocracy disguised as meritocracy. TJ and Anna, forward.
Well, Jordan Peterson is continuing to engage in Twitter feuds. Let's tell you about the latest one. Jordan Peterson thought, you know what? Today I'm gonna wake up and try to own the Pope. And that's what happened in response to a pretty lovely tweet from the Pope. So let's start with what the Pope had to say, and then we'll get to Jordan Peterson's reaction to it. So the Pope tweets, #social justice demands that we fight against the causes of poverty, inequality, and the lack of labor, land, and lodging, against those who deny social and labor rights, and against the culture that leads to taking away the dignity of others. Now, look, that is the least objectionable tweet I've ever read, but since it's Twitter, people are gonna find it objectionable. Namely, individuals like Jordan Peterson, who quote tweeted the Pope and said this, there is nothing Christian about social justice. Redemptive salvation is a matter of the individual soul. I don't even know what that means. But let's also remember how Jordan Peterson approaches the very simple question of, do you believe in God?
Do you believe in God? And I think, okay, there's a couple of mysteries in that question. What do you mean do? What do you mean you? What do you mean believe? And what do you mean God? And you say as the questioner, well, we already know what all those things mean, except belief in God. And I think, no, if we're going to get down to the fundamental brass tacks, we don't really know what any of those things mean.
Right.
Or as my son would say, bruh.
Anyway, Cenk, this is your time. Okay, this is when Cenk shines. Okay, the time when he can read verses from the Bible. So do you? Boo.
For sure.
Go for it.
No one reads the Bible more than no atheist reads the Bible more than I do. All right, guys. So a bunch of things. First of all, I love that Jordan Peterson is so arrogant. He's like, he's gonna get into a Bible quoting contest with the Pope. Okay, good luck, brother. Okay, you're gonna need it. And so apparently Jesus is not about social justice. Didn't care. Cared about individualism. Really? Individualism. All right, well, let's read some quotes. Luke 6:30, here's what Jesus said. Give to everyone who asks you, and if anyone takes what belongs to you, do not demand it back. What kind of individual does that?
Was Jesus Antifa?
Okay, well, here's what you're gonna find out. Jesus would make Karl Marx blush, okay? He said, give away everything you own. Marx is like, everything? Okay, so here we go. More, Luke 6:35, Jesus says, love your enemies, do good to them, and lend to them without expecting to get anything back. Then your reward will be great. Oh, like, so help others, not yourself. Doesn't sound like individualism to me. Let's keep going, Matthew 19:21, Jesus said unto him, if thou wilt be perfect, go and sell that thou hast, and give to the poor, and thou shalt have treasure in heaven, and come and follow me. In other words, give away all of your worldly possessions. Doesn't sound very individualistic, does it?
Is Jordan Peterson gonna go to hell?
Well, it depends. What do you mean by Jordan? What do you mean by Peterson?
Oh, go. What do you mean by go?
What do you mean by going? What do you mean by to? And what do you mean by hell?
Now you would think that we know all those things.
We know,
right. Yeah.
Okay. But do we? Okay, no, if you read, look, I got more quotes where that came from, but the bottom line is, okay, that Jesus was a communist, okay? Like, please, I'm begging you to read the Bible, okay? You'll see, Jesus says over and over and over again, give away everything you have, all of your worldly possessions, give it to the poor, give it to the needy, give it to the community. And be together as a community, follow me, because I've got that community. He wasn't like, be individualistic, go get a mansion and a yacht, and don't give a damn about other people, and tell the Pope that. These guys are a joke, man, they really are.
Oh, Jordy, he's having fun.
You know what he's gonna do when he sees this.
Is there anyone he doesn't fight with on Twitter?
No, he's just trying to get attention. And in
Mission
his
accomplished.
I know, right? It's true. And in his own mind, he thinks the Pope got him.
Got him.
Okay, but Jordan, what do you mean by God, and what do you mean by
Sexual temptation.
His reaction to this video. His reaction to this video is gonna be.
No, I live for that weird Jordan Peterson sound clip that Bart plays every once in a while. Because what is he saying at the end? Like, play it. It's coming.
Sexual temptation.
Oh,
we know what Jordan Peterson's version of hell is. He tweeted the other day. He said listening to Cenk Uygur all day would be hell. Oh, you know why? Because when we correct him like this, he's like, God damn it. But what do you mean by God? What do you mean by Dan? What do you mean by it? Yes, coming face to face with reality is quite painful for the right wing like Jordan Peterson.
All right, we're gonna talk about Chris Pratt. I know this is a little bit different from what we usually do, but I found this debate fascinating. So let's do it.
I got this, no problem. Yes!
Come on, Mario, our big adventure begins now!
Get it off, get it off, get it off!
You just watched a little snippet from the trailer for the upcoming movie Super Mario Bros, which I'm super excited about, gotta be honest. And the reason why we're talking about it is because even though I had seen that trailer before, I didn't realize until today that the voice for Mario is Chris Pratt. And that has led to controversy. Okay, so why? Well, I guess because Chris Pratt's a white guy and doesn't have an Italian accent?
Oh, come on, guys.
Okay,
come on.
But like, okay, so that was my initial reaction to it. But then our super producer Taylor mentioned the fact that, there's a lot of voice actors who probably are more deserving of this job. And I think that was an interesting point. So we'll get to that argument in just a second, but first let me set it up for you. Now, I should note that the co-director of the movie has come out in defense of Chris Pratt. So that was a big story today. Aaron Horvath told Total Film, Pratt is really good at playing a blue collar hero with a ton of heart. For the way that Mario is characterized in our film, he's perfect for it. Horvath also says, when you play the game, if you don't give up, Mario will succeed. So we transferred that player experience from the game to a characteristic that movie Mario would have.
Okay.
Yeah, that last part is, I mean, just
whatever.
Just say that you wanted to cast him and you did it. That's what you did. Okay?
Yeah.
You don't even have to explain yourself. Like, that's the other thing. I don't know if it's because we deal with endless feedback and criticism, and so we're used to it on Twitter, and I've just learned to like ignore it and it goes away. Others who haven't experienced it as regularly as we do, they freak out about it and they feel like they need to respond to, like, just guess what? You're the co-director. You get to do whatever you want. So don't respond to it if you don't want to.
Yeah, I would say the next time you're directing Super Mario movie, you pick someone else.
Wait, how did you say it?
Super Mario?
Mario?
Yeah. Why, how do you say it?
Mario.
Mario, huh?
That's the correct way, by the way.
Wait, am I right, Bart? No, Anna's right.
Mario. Yeah,
Mario.
Mario. What is Mario?
I know, I say a couple of words wrong. It's my authentic immigrant self, okay?
I've heard others say Mario, but you gotta squash it, you know?
Okay, all right, fair enough. So look, I really like Chris Pratt, even though I'm not supposed to, so I'm doing something illegal by liking Chris Pratt.
He's very naughty, he believes things that you don't believe.
Yeah, that's right. And so, but I like that they're like, oh, that's because he's more blue collar and what blue collar?
So ridiculous.
He makes so much money in movies. He might be a billionaire by now. What conversation? What crazy conversation are we having? No, just say I cast them, deal with it, move on with your life, okay?
Right.
And so I mean, look, if people are really complaining because he doesn't have an Italian accent, he's not authentically Italian. Come on, guys, bounds of reason, okay?
Okay, so the argument that Taylor made, that's our producer, that I think was a good argument. It resonated with me. Was a lot of these movies end up casting the same big name actors over and over again because they think the actor is the draw. But if you've got a great movie, the people will come, right? So there was a period of time, I've got nothing against Emma Stone, so I wanna be clear about that. But there was a phase where every movie had Emma Stone as the star.
100%.
And I was just like, can we get someone else? Like, I mean, she's great, but I'm sure there are other actresses out there.
I'll tell you why that happens, because Hollywood's like high school. So if someone's hot, everybody wants to be part of the hot crew, right? And to be fair to Hollywood, there is a little bit of truth to it, right? So my son, who's 12 years old, first thing he tells me about Super Mario Brothers movie is, did you know that the voice of Mario is Chris Pratt? So they're appealing to those teenage boys who play it and want to, and like Chris Pratt. And so, but at the same time, like, this is not a thing to cancel people over. Like, first of all, I'm not positive there is a difference between white and Italian. So let's be dispensed with that, right?
Well, race is a social construct to some extent.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And so, second of all, look, I want voice actors to get more stuff. Like one of our hosts, Mark Thompson, legendary voice actor, amazing voice of
national treasure.
National treasure, but like, kind of literally a voice of American Idol, voice of Cops, etc. And how amazing would it be if he got one of these roles? Having said that, if they think they're gonna make an extra buck by casting Chris Pratt, they're gonna cast Chris Pratt, and that's called capitalism.
So Christian bought tickets to go see Titanic at the IMAX because it was the God, it's so sad, the 25th anniversary of Titanic, which made me very depressed. Anyway, so we went to go see it, and that's when I saw the trailer for the Super Mario movie. I didn't know it was Chris Pratt. And I'm definitely not the demographic that they were probably trying to get, but I want to watch that movie. You get what I'm saying? Like the movie looks interesting, it looks fun.
But remember, look, last thing, there's just slight defense of the movie makers here, which is that certain percentage won't care that it's Chris Pratt at all, like you, right? They I want to go see that movie. Some percentage will never want to see that movie. But is there a percentage of people who are pushed over the top to see it because Chris Pratt or someone else famous that they like from another movie is in it? Yeah, and that's why from time immemorial, the minute Hollywood started, they started promoting their stars endlessly, even though, think about it, it gives the star leverage next time there's a contract negotiation. But they do it anyway, why? Because if we're being honest, human beings like alphas. And so
human beings love hype. They love hype.
Yeah, so when they get elevated to alpha status, and it's not a positive thing, but it is what it is, people react to it. They're like, oh, Marilyn Monroe, oh, Chris Pratt, right? And so, that's amore.
So Dragon Slayer Dragon wrote in and says, I won't watch Super Mario Brothers until Mario is dubbed over John Idarola.
Idarola, there you go.
He is Italian.
He is Italian, and he makes a mean pizza pie. Wait, oh no, am I gonna get canceled? Am I not allowed to do an Italian accent? Okay, by the way, Chris Pratt apparently has a bunch of views I don't agree with, and everybody's constantly talking about firing him from things for that.
Come on,
I don't
guys.
even want to know his opinions. I don't know. I don't care. I don't know what the political opinions of Groot are either, and I don't want to know. Okay.
Finally, I want to read one more quote. So this is from Illumination CEO Chris Meledandri. He says this, and by the way, Illumination is the company behind the movie. When people hear Chris Pratt's performance, the criticism will evaporate. Maybe not entirely. People love to voice opinions as they should. I'm not sure this is the smartest defense, but as a person who has Italian American heritage, I feel I can make that decision without worrying about offending Italians or Italian Americans. Chris, just do what you want to do, okay?
Yeah.
Like the people who want to be offended over everything will be offended no matter what you do. So just do what you want to do. But at the same time, I do want other actors, whether it's voice actors or on-screen actors, to get opportunities. Let's build up other people.
Yeah, I mean, how about Mediterranean talk show hosts who could, some people mistake for Italian? That people shout paisan when he walks into a pizza place. How about a guy like that? Huh? Did you ever think of that? Chris, so-called Italian Meledandri.
It's a great last name.
It's such an Italian name.
Yeah.
You didn't have to tell us you were from an Italian background. Not guilty, let it go.
Okay, final thing that is not related to the story, but I have to clarify because I feel awful. So earlier we read a comment from one of our viewers, Alpha Dog. Alpha Dog wrote in again, and it turns out that Alpha Dog is in fact a female. I want to read the comment.
Awesome, I love that.
Thank you for the Blue Apron gift card. I'm a gal. As Anna knows, most alphas are female.
Damn, okay, I like that alpha attitude. Don't make me give you another Blue Apron gift card. Don't make me do that. Hannah Hartman wrote in the member section. See, we love our members. We do the show together. What are you, crazy? tyt.com/join. All right, Hannah writes in. Cenk also says librarians when talking about librarians. What do you mean?
Do you really say that? You say library?
Yeah. Librarians, what do you say?
Say library.
Library.
Say it slowly.
Library.
No, you mess it up.
I do, what is it?
Library.
Library?
Yeah.
Yeah, agree to disagree.
I'm really good at enunciating, I've learned. According to my family.
Guys, there's like about half a dozen to a dozen words that I say wrong. Partly because I read them and I didn't live in a circumstance where people would say them.
Yeah, no, totally. I remember early years of TYT, I was so embarrassed because I wanted to say jargon, but I said jargon.
Jargon of a cod? No, that's a different thing.
And Cenk, like during a break, was like, "Hey, it's jargon, not jargon," and I like wanted to die.
Yeah, but just the other day we've discovered that I've been saying miscellanea all along, and it turns out it's miscellanea. No one knew. There's like, you guys, longtime viewers of TYT, you have the list somewhere of all the words that I get wrong.
Buffet, you say buffet.
Oh, I love buffet though. Come on, to be fair, it should be buffet. LJ Wombology says about Jordan Peterson, Jesus, what a cuck.
Oh.
Sexual temptation.
Oh. All right, what do we have in there?
Oh my God, bonus episode's gonna be wild. We're gonna talk about Paw Patrol. No, really though. Wealthy people in LA who are concerned about crime are spending way too much money on guard dogs, and I'm talking about 6 figures, so we'll give you the details on that. We'll also talk about a woman who has put her boyfriend on a PIP. That's known as a performance improvement plan. And should she be in that relationship in the first place? We will debate it. We'll talk about it.
All right, last couple of comments from you guys. Doo Bean wrote in, I call my white grandma bruh. Definitely not racial. And Brimstone Win Pete says, the funny thing is when I hear oligarchy in my head, it's not the song, it's Anna going, oligarchy. Totally true. Chris Birch is
just can't believe.
Chris Birch is an American hero for gifting 1 Young Turks membership. Pamela Bullard just became a member and an American hero. We'll see you in the bonus episode.
Hey everyone, Matteo Scarapore here, author of Black Buck, which is Shop TYT's first fiction book ever. I'm honored. So, Black Buck is about a young man named Darren who's living in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. He lives with his mom, he has his girlfriend, he has his best friend, he has his neighborhood, and his neighborhood has him. Darren's also